Oh, you better believe you're in trouble now. You checked out this book in 1951. 51 was my first year on the job. Bad year for libraries. Bad year for America. Hippies burning library cards. Now, I don't judge a man by the length of his hair or the type of music he listens to. Rock and roll was never my bag. But you put on a pair of shoes when you enter the public library, my friend. Oh, you think this is all a joke, do you? Do you think you're above the law? Well, let me tell you something, funny boy. You know the little stamp? The little stamp that says public library? Well, that might not mean much to you, but it means a lot to me. A whole hell of a lot. Oh, I've seen your type before. Flashy. Making the scene. Flaunting convention. I know what you're thinking. What's this guy making such a stink about a library book for? Well, let me give you a hint. Maybe people like you and me, we can live without libraries. But what about that kid sitting down, opening a book in the public library right now and finding drawings of pee-pees and wee-wees in the Cat in the Hat? Doesn't he deserve better? Look, if you think this is about fines and missing books and overdue books, well, you better think again. This is about that kid's right to read a library book without getting his mind all warped. Well, unless that's what you're into, you and your good time buddies. Unless that's what turns you on. Well, I got a flash for you, Joy Boy. Party time is over. You've got 7 days to return this book. That's 1 week. Maybe some of the best acting since Robert De Niro in The Godfather. I'm telling you, the production values on my videos are Oscar-worthy. You know, I actually was a library policeman. Since we're reviewing The Library Policeman out of Stephen King's book 4 Past Midnight, let's just start out with that. I was a library policeman. See, I work for the Utah Department of Corrections. I was a prison guard. I started out in the mental health unit, moved to the gang unit, moved to the intake unit, and then they put me in charge of all 6 prison libraries. I was a real, legit library policeman. Let me tell you something. We did some good work in those libraries. We got book donations from all over the world. Publishers, writers, bookstores, tens of thousands of book donations. Taught creative writing classes to the inmates. Put on the world's first ever prison Comic-Con. Me and my buddy, James Dashner, the author of The Maze Runner, put on the first ever in the history of the world prison Comic-Con, all in our prison libraries. Not only that, but I was in charge of our prison's Reading for the Blind program, which is this. It is a recording studio where we've got 20 recording studios where the inmates come in and they read any magazine or any rare book that any blind person across the country requests. If they can't find it on audible.com because it's rare or something, they put in a request. One of our inmates reads it for free. And let me tell you something. Some of our inmates were as good of voice actors as the people you can find on audible.com. And it was a free program for any blind person to get anything they wanted read to them. And we produced our Utah State Prison Reading for the Blind program, became the #1 reading for the blind program in the world, surpassing even the program that the Library of Congress had in Washington, D.C. That's how awesome it became. So yes, I was an actual library policeman. So I was excited to reread The Library Policeman in Stephen King's compilation, 4 Past Midnight. Now, if you've been following my reviews, I'm reviewing every Stephen King novel in order of publication. We are now to 4 Past Midnight, which is a book full of 4 short novels. The Langoliers, Secret Window, Secret Garden, The Library Policeman, and Sundog. We're to The Library Policeman now. We'll get to Sundog later. I've reviewed the other 2. Library Policeman, yes. Yes, 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 yes. I once was a library policeman. I can relate. Let's talk about the book. Enough about me. Let's talk about the book briefly, because I'm only going to talk about generally give you I don't do spoilers. I just do general plot points and why I love the book. So let's get to it. It's about Sam. He has to give a speech in the Rotary Club. He knows nothing about giving speeches. So he goes to the public library to check out books on how to give a speech. While he's this is an aside. This is just a little coinky-dink that I ran into. Stephen King often puts his own self in books that he writes. Sometimes you find Stephen King in the actual story that he's writing. In this case, Stephen King, Sam goes into the library and he's looking at some Stephen King novels. And the librarian says, hey, yeah, those are good novels, but the one I have the hardest time keeping in stock is actually by Robert McCammon, and it's called Swan Song. And that's in the book. I was like, hey, Stephen King gave a shout out to Robert McCammon and Swan Song. The thing that I thought was cool was if any of you have watched my review of Swan Song by Robert McCammon, which I put up on YouTube about 4 months ago, I mentioned the very same thing, that in my prison libraries, the one book that I could not keep in stock, that the inmates kept stealing, was Swan Song by Robert McCammon. So that's just a crazy coincidence that not only did I mention that in my video, but then later I read it, and that's every library must have Swan Song must be the most popular book in the world, if you think of it. Anyway, let's get back to Sam. He's in the library checking out books on how to give a speech. And the librarian says, you better make sure those are returned on time. Otherwise, you will be getting a visit from the library policeman, and you do not want that. And he's like, whatever. What can they do? Yeah, but anyway, he gives the speech. It was a rousing success. He forgets to turn in the library books, and he gets a visit from the library policeman. And that's when the story turns into a monster horror story, because the library policeman, he is not a good dude at all. And he punishes people in all the creepy, horrific, terrifying Stephen King ways that a library policeman might punish someone for not returning their books. And it is awesome. And let me tell you, having been a library cop myself, well, hey, people that damage books, people that bring the books back all effed up, people that bend the spine, crack the spine, tear the pages, eat their spaghetti dinner on top of the book. Oh, that turned me into a monster. I related to the library policeman. I mean, you want to when people destroy your library books, you just want to, why? Almost gave myself a heart attack right there. But that's how serious I am about library books. By the way, that weird monologue that I did at the beginning of that's from Seinfeld. There's go to YouTube and just type in Seinfeld, the library cop. And the guy that does that monologue does it way better than me. Let's just say that. It's funny. Anyway, that's where that came from. So, yeah, some of the themes of the library policeman, basically there's just one theme. It's like, confronting the monsters of your youth. That kind of thing. There's a lot of creepy stuff going on in the library. The library policeman, the librarian is off. She's just off. You can tell something ain't right with her. The library cop, definitely he's the monster. He's the boogeyman. He's the Cujo. He's the Jaws. He's the alien. He's the predator. He's the Chucky doll of this whole story. It's a good story. It's it's a short novel, so you don't have to take a lot of time reading it. as are all the other short novels in 4 Past Midnight. So let's rate it. Let's rate it. I say 7.5 out of 10. I do, 1 out of 10s. 1 through 10. Those are my ratings. 1 through 10. 7.5. I'm Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, published by Simon & Schuster Saga Press. This is my book review channel. And every book, I'm reading all the Stephen King books. I don't know if I mentioned this at the beginning, but I'm reading all the Stephen King books in order of publication. We're to 4 Past Midnight now. Now, before I leave, every book that I write is dedicated to Stephen King, Motley Crue, and the Oakland Raiders, because those were the 3 most important things to me as a kid, so they get a shout out in every book that I write. So hey, listen up, man. Go get 4 Past Midnight. It's full of some good stories, especially Library Policeman.